some yarn, in this case it's thread. We need some scissors. We need a crochet hook. I'm using a 1.9 millimeter and a needle, and then whatever you're gonna put it on. Your little granny square, little tiny granny square. So this needle, this crochet hook that I'm using is a 1.9 millimeter. I'm sure 2.0 would work very well as well. Let's see, let me just show you what I had done. So I started off making a little granny square. I was thinking of making a stitch marker. I'm still going to use this one as a stitch marker. I just used the thread and then used an itty bitty little needle to try to thread it through this stitch marker holder. This kind. You can use any kind of stitch marker holder that you want to use, and this will work just great. I was a little concerned, however, this is quite thin here, and so it ends up, you know, being a little abrasive against this thread. So I am concerned that it's going to eventually break. And so I put that one aside, still going to use it, put that one aside, and thought, okay, well, I'm going to put some jump rings on. So I needed two so it would lay flat, unless you want it to hang like this. Then you just need one. And so I just used a jump ring to go through one of the corners, and then I had to use the smaller one to attach to this stitch marker. So that's this one. Then I thought, you know what, I've put these stitch markers in my ears before and worn as pierced earrings. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna make two, but I want it to be a little bit more stiff here. Hold its structure just a little bit more if I'm gonna wear them as earrings. And so that's when I made these. And I realized how quickly I was doing them. Thought, I'm gonna show you guys so you can make some as stitch markers and or earrings. So what I did, I just went around the edge and just put a slip stitch through each one. And then made a nice long chain. I don't like opening this. So I made a nice long chain and then just pulled it through and then connected it over here. And then wove in my tails. So I needed two so I could make a pair, or I could just wear, you know, one pink and one purple because I can, and because it's fun. So yeah, so I made some earrings. And again, they're stitch markers. Their original thought was stitch markers. I'll still use them as stitch markers, but especially on Tuesdays when I have my crochet club at school, that's what I'll be wearing. At least this Tuesday, I'll be wearing those. So what I used was this embroidery thread. These are the cotton kind. You can use any kind, but these, if you're going to use the entire strand without dividing them, this one only has like two ply, and so you're less likely to be splitting them. So this was a lot easier for me to use. And one of these is 10 yards or 9.14 meters, and I used one to make two. So if you want a pair for whatever reason, earrings or whatever, all you need is one of these. And you can get them for what, 50 cents, 59 cents, whatever inflation is sending them off as. And I just took it out of this band and went ahead and balled it up. So it's just a little bit easier for me to use. Get a little coffee mug or a yarn bowl, whatever you use. Keep it in there because it's going to be rolling around. You can use that and put everything else off to the side until I need. Just going to use my itty bitty little hook. I start with a magic circle. I don't do it as a traditional granny square. I'm going to start with a magic circle with 8 single crochets around. So I'm going to start with a magic loop, crossing over, holding the cross under the first thread, grab the other one, pull it through, put my yarn in my hand, do a little chain, little slip stitch, little chain, pull that tight, you don't want it too big. And then I'm just going to do itty bitty little 8. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now I'm going to take this tail and pull it, tighten it down a little bit, not all the way, because you want to be able to get into this first stitch here. And I'm going to put 2 single crochets in the first one. I'm not going to slip to join or anything. We don't need all that mucking up this little tiny piece. So just going to go into that first stitch, first single crochet, and make 2 single crochets. And then in the second one, I'm going to make 1 single crochet and a chain. So that's our 2 stitches in there. And then the next one I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then the next one I'm going to do 1 single crochet and a chain. You can do that 4 times. Actually, the last time I'm just going to do 1 single crochet and not the chain. Now what I'm going to do is try to figure out which one of these is our very first single crochet, and go in and make 1 single crochet, and that's our chain. Then I'm going to go in under this first single crochet, make 1 single crochet, then go under that left leg and make a stacked single crochet. You can certainly chain 3, all right? But by doing it with a single crochet to join, what I did was took myself into the center of this gap here of the corner, so I could go ahead and make the first 3. That first stacked single crochet is the first double crochet. Then I make 2 more double crochets, oops, to make half of the corner of this granny. And now I try to count 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and then this is the chain. So I'm going to go down under that 4th stitch, which is the chain. I'm going to wrap my yarn first, and I'm going to go under that 4th stitch, which is the chain, and make 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, then chain 2 and 3 double crochets. So if you noticed, I did not put a chain between my corners. So you got to make sure that you're looking at the actual stitches. So 1, 2, I'm on top of a stitch here. I'm on top of a stitch here because we're really cramming it in here with one chain. So I'm on top of a stitch, and then 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Those are my 3 single crochets, and then this next is the chain. So I'm going to go under there, trying to push between the stitches. So make 3 double crochets. Chain 2, 3 double crochets. There we go. And now I don't chain between my corners, then I go to the next corner. So I'm going to count 1 that I just was on top of, 2, 3 single crochet stitches, and then this is my chain. I'm going to push my hook through that, and I'm going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. because it's just a granny square corner. So this round is just like any other granny square. If you've made them before, then you know. 1, 2, 3. And now we are to our first corner that we started with just the half. And so we have this space where those first stitches were made. So I'm going to go into that same space, and I'm not going to chain here. I'm just going to yarn over, go into that same space there, and make 3 double crochets. And now I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to start my last round. My last round is going to be slip stitches all the way around. So I am going to slip stitch to join in this very first double crochet. That's actually our stacked singles, but because we didn't do it, because I didn't do a chain, if you didn't do a chain, then you have an actual stitch there to go into on the top. Otherwise, you're going to go into the 3rd chain. So there's 1, 2. I'm just doing slip stitches around, and there's no chain in between, so I have another 3 here. Oops. 1, 2, 3, and then I have these 2 chains. I want a slip stitch for both of them, and you can't just slip stitch without actually going, around a chain. So I'm going to actually go into the chains here and do 2 slip stitches, 1 in each chain around that corner. Go under 1, go under 2, it doesn't matter. So then we've got 2 chains. Into that one, into the second one, and in order to make sure that I don't skip a stitch here, I always count backwards, so I can see these double crochet stitches. There's 1, 2, 3 stitches. To make sure that I get that first one, I count backwards, 3, 2, 1. So I know that if that other chain got a little too close, then I'm still going to have the right number of stitches around, and it's going to be more of a squared off square, right? Okay, so I'm back at the beginning here. Here's the last 2 chains for that last corner. I'm not going to slip stitch through that one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 8 chains. So from this slip stitch, the very last one, I'm just going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'm going to draw up a loop, and I'm going to cut enough so that I can attach it on the other side and then sew in the ends. So before I do that, what I want to do is to get whatever it is that I'm going to put on as a stitch marker. So I'm going to use this, right? Okay, so I don't have tools. I don't have tools, and every time I open up a ring, I'm using my teeth, which don't work so well, or I use my nails and I end up splitting a nail. And so I was trying to find a way that I don't have to mess with this big thick one. So these little ones are a little bit easier to deal with. So if I just open up a little jump ring, so that'll fit through this stitch marker, this clasp, and then I can also, while it's open, pull it through this larger one and then smush it closed. And I wanted to save you guys from that very awful scene of me doing that. And then I have this nice, beautiful jump ring here that I am just going to bring through. The only thing I want to make sure I get the loop and I get the tail through. I want to make sure that when I have my because I'm going to use it as an earring. When I have my stitch marker this way, where it's going to go through my ear, and this clasp goes behind my ear, that when this lays flat, this granny square is facing upward, not like that. Just because it's a little prettier on this side. It's beautiful on both sides. Come on, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. But if you are a little bit like me, you'll want to make sure that that's the right way. So then you take this little tail, and what I do, I go to this side where there's already slip stitches, and I look at my 3 slip stitches. So I go under the first slip stitch on the front, go under that slip stitch, pull my yarn through very carefully. How do you do that? Very carefully. And then I slip stitch. And then I draw that yarn all the way through and pull it tight. And I went through the front of that because when I came off of here, I was at the front. I did the slip stitch in that last stitch before the chain, and I was off the front doing this chain of 8. And then I wanted it to look the same on this side. So I went ahead and did a slip stitch across the front of that first slip stitch. And now what we need to do is to deal with these tails. I'm gonna pull this one that I just made at the end, went from fastening off. I'm gonna pull it through that center to the back, not off the side, because I want to keep it looking similar to this first side. So I just pulled it through the center so I wouldn't be pulling it back. So we have back here, I have my embroidery needle. It's itty bitty, so you can't use a big one. If you can find one with a pointy end, that'd be great. Yeah. So we're pulling it through, we're on this side now. So I want for it to kind of pull over to the side. So I'm gonna go back through this last stitch over here on the back. And then I'm gonna have it go through these double crochet stitches over here, down, pull it through, snug it down a little bit without changing the shape of your earring or your slip stitch of your granny square. Pull it down, and now I'm going to go back through. Do not go into the same exact place where you came out or you'll pull it right out. Go back through. I'm going to grab one over here so that I'm not going in the same place, and come back through. Make sure you're inside the stitches. You don't go all the way through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through. We don't want to break on through to the other side. So we're going to pull that through. So that's 3. So we should be good with that. Isn't that nice? Then you take your center tail here from your magic circle, thread that onto your needle, and we're going to go, so it came out this way, you can kind of see the way it's fallen. You want to go back through the other way if you can. This is so tiny, oh my goodness. So I'm going to try to get it into that magic circle, try to get it under a couple. It's really tight. Now I'm going to bring it up here, really down here to the bottom double crochets. This is how I'm doing it. You can certainly do it any way you want. Not through the exact same place. Opposite directions, back and forth, back. Back, forth, back. Minimum of 3. There we go. Cut that off. Cut that off. And you got yourself a stitch marker / earring. How cute is that? Very fast, very cute, great little gifts for the crocheter, knitter, crocheter. We're all about the granny squares, right? Your crocheter in your life, or just your loved ones who just want to be thinking about you and your crocheting all the time. There you have it. The granny square earring. Granny square stitch marker. I don't know. Have fun.